without further ado, you all know who I am. If you've joined these webinars before, my name is Noah Warder. I'm the head of people over here at Guusto. Really excited to be here to talk about all things recognition. Love the topic, could talk about it all day, all night. And I'm joined by Skai. So Skai, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure thing. Yeah, thanks, Noah. You can hear me all good there on your end. And I'm sharing the screen. Just want to make sure you've got the right one with our intro slide there.
We're good.
All right, great. Let's dive in then. So yeah, I'm Skai, one of the founders here at Guusto, and yeah, really excited to kind of share what we've been learning over the past kind of 10 years working with HR leaders on how to shape great culture. So with that, let's kind of just quickly look at an agenda. So the first thing is that there's a lot of misconceptions around culture. So we're going to start with just a quick look at, what culture is and why it matters now kind of more than ever. And then what we're really excited to share with you is our ACE Your Culture model. It lays out the framework for how to shape great culture at your organization using recognition, and Noah's going to kind of walk us through that piece. Then I'm going to jump back in, and I want to help you prepare to generate buy-in from all of the potential stakeholders at your organization when you're launching a new program. At the end, I'm going to let you know how Guusto might help you supercharge your recognition program. So with that, let's dive in. So I'd like to start with a quick story on kind of how Guusto got started. So my friend Joe and I here grew up together just north of Toronto. And after school, after we kind of finished university, we started a dining tour company in Whistler. So think high-end pub crawls, going restaurant to restaurant. Anyways, this is where we got the idea to be able to send a drink or a bottle of wine to a client or a friend. We thought it was a pretty cool idea, and we took it to Dragon's Den, so kind of the equivalent to Shark Tank here in Canada. And you can watch the episode online if you Google CBC there. We didn't get a deal, and we were running out of cash fast. But luckily, shortly afterwards, we noticed a few HR leaders starting to recognize employees on a regular basis. And so we talked with these people, and we learned that it was actually really hard for companies to build consistent recognition into their culture. And what was really cool is that, some of these, so here's kind of Joe talking to our customers. And what's really cool is that some of these early adopters were so passionate about the product that we became the first company in Canada to do equity crowdfunding. And so meaning we're actually customer backed and not venture financing backed. And so we have a bunch of HR professionals, just like yourselves, that are invested in helping us build a really amazing platform for HR people. And so we were pumped and off to the races at this point, or so we thought. But things were kind of slow growing, and we always seemed to be kind of a step behind our competitors. And then we got a wake-up call in the form of this one-star Glassdoor review. At the time, I didn't even know that we had a Glassdoor profile. We were fairly small at the time, but came across this, and this was the aha moment where we truly felt the pain of poor employee engagement and the cost of turnover. And the irony was, at the time, we were selling an employee recognition tool, albeit kind of early days, but we weren't using it internally. And so this is when we decided to make people and culture our top priority at Guusto, and we started drinking our own Kool-Aid. And as soon as we did this, like everything started to change. Since then, we've grown tremendously. We've had the opportunity to work with thousands of amazing HR leaders from all sorts of companies across Canada and the US. And we realized that our best customers had a certain way of working. And so we interviewed them, extracted as much info as we could, and put together this webinar so that we can help you build great culture into your organization. And so with that, what is great culture? And I might pass it back here to Noah, our people leader, to kind of dive in on this.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Gabe. And so, yeah, I mean, we talk about culture so often as HR leaders. It's the number one thing that we're always talking about. It comes up in every type of article that we're reading online. And so, there's always the talk about the perks, the cool offices, the employee yoga classes, massages, all that kind of good stuff. Bring your dog to work policies. That's for those of you who still have offices or warehouses. Or now that we're all remote, is it the virtual happy hours, the team days, the offsites for our remote teams? And can we just implement these perks and practices into our companies and say we have, great culture? Is that all it is? But I think we can all agree that culture is so much more than just the perks. Culture is our company's character, but let's not get this mixed up with values and beliefs. Those are the aspirations we hold as an organization. Culture is really how the people in our organization act. It's how they behave, and it's how they make decisions. It's our collective way of doing things. And culture really provides the context for strategy around our finance and marketing and technology and everything else that happens within an organization, which is why it's the single greatest factor determining its success, more than talent, more than knowledge, more than innovation. And it's no wonder that many leaders have become cynical towards any investment in culture. All they see are the perks and the costs that come with them with no tangible returns. Perks that are just that. Perks, they're nice to haves. They're not the things that really have a tangible return on all the investment that we're having. So what makes great culture where people want to work? So we've kind of devised this, talked about these three main components that we've kind of figured out after talking to all of our clients. And we like to call it POW. Think POW. You're really making a POW with your culture. So this is purpose, opportunity, and well-being. And so let's talk about that first one, purpose. And, our people really need to feel connected to a company's purpose. They need to understand how their job is meaningful and what makes their contributions impactful to business goals. Once they understand this, once they figure out what they're contributing to, they'll pursue their work with a lot more passion, and that makes for great culture. The second is opportunity. So let's talk about the O, opportunity. Our people need to have the opportunity to grow in an organization. And this is more than just promotions and pay increases. Those are lovely things to have. Everybody loves getting more money, but it's really more the chance to develop new skills, feel challenged, have a voice in what's happening, and experience success as well as failures. And when there's that opportunity to grow, our people will embrace that growth at a personal and professional level. And that makes for great culture. And the third, well-being. Now, this one's one of my favorites. Our people need to feel that their well-being is a company priority. And I think we've all seen this in the pandemic now more than ever. They need to feel that they're part of a community that is inclusive, where they feel safe and supported. When they do that, when they feel safe and supportive and that their well-being is a priority, they bring their strongest, most capable and authentic selves to work. And that makes for great culture. And so let's do a quick review of the POW model here, components. When people feel a sense of purpose, they will work with passion. When people feel they have an opportunity, they will embrace growth. And when people feel a sense of well-being, they will bring their full authenticity to the workplace. And when we have all three of these components, we will have a great foundation for culture that we can start to build off of. Now, let's run our first poll of the day. So I'm going to launch this. It's anonymous. So how much of a company priority is improving your culture right now? Low, moderate, high, critical? Are you having discussions as an executive team? Is this something that's, constantly being brought up? Is it on your HR roadmap? What are you doing? How big of this is the culture as a topic at sort of those leadership discussions? I'm going to use this opportunity to have a drink. All right, let's take maybe one more minute. We're getting close to full participation. Right, looking pretty good. Perfect. All right, so we got about 29 out of 33. Let's end the poll. Let's share these results. So it looks like our majority is really in the high to critical area. And it's true, culture is super important. A lot of executives, a lot of leaders are really talking a lot about this. So excited to see that a lot of companies are really serious about this. Awesome. Okay. Just gonna move that on my way. So why culture matters now more than ever. And so there's been two major shifts happening in the world. We're all familiar with the first one. We're all moving to remote or hybrid work due to the pandemic, which really accelerated that process. And this is making it difficult for people to connect and feel engaged with not only their coworkers, but with the company mission and vision. Excuse me. And I'm sure some of you have read this Microsoft report, but they polled a bunch of different companies, a bunch of executives, and 83% of organizations have or will have already gone fully remote or hybrid. 83% of organizations. That's a huge amount. And so I think we can safely say that the majority of people are working either remotely or with remote coworkers. The second major shift is that the workforce itself has changed. Millennials and Gen Z are now the largest segment of employees out there. And they're looking for companies where they feel their contributions matter and are valued. They feel supported and included. They feel connected and empowered to grow. And they feel aligned with the values and missions. They want to feel like they belong to an organization. A recent report by Lattice showed that millennials and Gen Z are twice as likely to leave an organization if they feel that they don't belong there, if they don't have that sense of belonging. So that's a huge number. They're twice as likely to leave. And within a year, like they're gone right away if they don't feel like they belong within an organization. So if we're not intentional about creating inclusive, empathetic, and resilient cultures and rewarding the behaviors we want to see in our companies, we risk creating toxic microcultures where questionable behaviors begin to hit short-term metrics and goals. But if we can get culture right or steer it in the right direction, we see a positive impact on everything from engagement, performance, productivity, innovation, retention, advocacy, and recruiting. You name it, whatever your company is doing, if you have a great culture, there's going to be positive benefits. So a culture is really our ultimate advantage as an organization. Most companies focus on business functions like product updates, marketing campaigns, and sales strategies that are easy for competitors to copy with how fast information is shared these days. But a great culture is very difficult to duplicate and will affect every aspect of your organization. Your people will learn from each other, identify critical issues, and recover more quickly from their mistakes. Without politics or confusion getting in their way, they'll cycle through problems and rally around solutions much faster than their dysfunctional rivals will. So, how do we create a culture that is more than the perks and encompasses everything we just talked about in the POW model? Well, we've really created this ACER culture model after working with thousands of HR people and leaders across multiple industries to help us think about culture. And so we're going to share 9 simple ways to take action using recognition right now. So at the center of our ACE culture model, we're driving towards one objective, and that's great culture. And we talked about the POW, the 3 components of POW, so purpose, opportunity, and well-being. Now, you can't just put something on the wall for people to feel purpose, or give out raises for people to feel opportunity, or add more benefits for people to feel a sense of well-being. To produce these outcomes, we need to align, connect, and empower our people. So, obviously, there are many ways to drive culture, but we believe that recognition is one of the most powerful tools. So let's dive in. Recognition is so according to a Gallup study, 26% of employees ranked recognition in the top 3 factors for staying at a company. And 20% pointed to a lack of recognition as the main reason they'd leave a job. Not money, not their manager, not growth, recognition. So 1 out of 5 employees are saying they're not feeling recognized enough and they're leaving their organization because of that. But recognition goes beyond just making people feel appreciated. It reinforces everything you want your culture to embody. Now, before I jump into all those 9 tips, let's do another poll because I love polls. I love data. I'm going to talk a little bit about data later on as well. So let's launch this one. All right. So how much is your company using recognition to shape your culture today? All right. I'm getting some good answers here. We're about 75% of the way there. Let's give it another minute. If you haven't answered, I'd love you to answer. We're looking pretty good here. And just as a reminder, if you have any questions that come up or you want to add in some, color commentary in the chat, please do so. We also have the QA portion as well. So any questions, please fire them out into the chat. Make sure you're changing the setting to everyone instead of just the panelists. All right, I'm going to end the poll here, share these results. So it looks like a pretty good spread. We've got, 12% of people saying very little, 48% of people saying sometimes, and 36% of people saying frequently, and 4% of people saying all the time. Awesome. Love to see that there's some people that are doing it all the time. There's people that are doing it frequently. And there's people that it sounds like you're aspiring to this, but you're just maybe struggling with how to get it done. So thanks for filling out the poll. Now let's jump into our 9 tips. How do we see this? So first of all, let's talk about align. So aligning people, this is really important. It's all about getting everyone the information they need to understand where the company is going and how they can contribute. It's about being transparent so that we can get everyone going in the same direction. When there's no alignment, there's no trust. And without trust, communication breaks down. I'll give you a great example. In any human interaction, the level of communication required is inversely related to a level of trust. If I trust you completely, I don't really need an explanation of your actions because I trust that what you're doing is in my best interests. For large and remote and hybrid organizations, communication is one of the biggest challenges that they face. So building trust is critical for great communication. If you can build trust across your teams, communication just flows that much easier. I love this quote by Simon Sinek about this. A team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. So high functioning teams trust each other. They trust that they're always working together. So let's talk about 3 tips to align using recognition. The first one is really about building consistency. If you want to align your people and foster trust, you need a consistent recognition program. And this doesn't mean that you need to send recognition at the same scheduled times. In fact, that's counterproductive. As reward comes to be expected, frequent variable rewards do a better job at reinforcing behavior as they release dopamine in our brains and feel like nice little surprises. Everyone likes to be recognized. Also, recognition is more effective when it's immediate or close to it, not 6 or 12 months later at a performance review, when no one really remembers what actually happened. And lastly, our leadership teams need to walk the talk. You have to get them to consistently recognize people for pushing the company toward the mission and vision. If we want others to do the same, which will start to shape culture. So I really want to emphasize that leader part, because if your executives are not bought in and participating, no amount of recognition is really going to succeed. You need to get that top leadership involved. Let's jump into a little stat. So 88% of those who know core values of an organization say they are engaged. At the same time, most employees, 2 out of 3 employees say that they're not engaged at work. So how do you increase that engagement? Tie your recognition program to core values. So people pay attention to reward programs and recognition because it feels nice. They're getting something, they're being acknowledged. So it's great to leverage that opportunity and consistently reiterate the company's core values, how we want people to behave in our organization. In all communications about the recognition program. When people are being recognized, tie it to a core value. When they're being rewarded, tie it to a core value. These are the behaviors we want folks to personify in their daily interactions. So let's jump into another stat. So only 14% of employees know their company's direction. 14%. That is tragically low. So how can they align with and work toward your company's mission and vision and objectives if you don't communicate what they are, if they don't understand what it is? So this goes into our next tip, reward objectives. So we want to recognize achievements and behaviors that move the company toward its vision. And we can do this on an individual or team level to get people working together. For example, we could reward the customer support team for reaching 100 happy support calls with no issues unresolved, or 1 week with no delayed shipments. Putting rewards in place for objectives forces the organization to set very clear objectives. I'm sure you've all worked in organizations where objectives were kind of murky and muddy and no one really understood what they were supposed to do. And this shows people their purpose and is how it connects the company to its vision. And this is really powerful. Just setting clear objectives really helps align people around what they're supposed to be doing and helps drive their purpose. We'll never get somewhere if we don't know where it is. So tie recognition to real company objectives, not just for showing up. To recap, we need to align our people, and this requires leadership that both communicates and recognizes people for driving the company towards its mission and vision, tying recognition to core values, and rewarding objectives. And if we fail to align our people, we won't have trust, and that is critical. in any organization for success. Excuse me. So our next tip is all around connect. So connection is all about getting people to care personally about each other. And this is especially important while people are working remotely. Humans actually have the need for connection baked into our genetics. For thousands of years, we needed tribes and groups just to survive. Becoming separated from the tribe or cast out was, certain death. Meanwhile, those that bonded and collaborated with others enjoyed increased safety and access to resources. So one of the deepest human desires is to belong. And this is coming out more and more in the newer workforces that we're seeing. And this ancient preference exerts a powerful influence on our modern behavior. So in order for our teams to thrive, we need to help them connect and work together. And when there's no connection, there is no collaboration. And without collaboration, it's hard to achieve great things as just a group of individuals. I love this quote by Michael Jordan. Talent wins games, but teamwork wins championships. I'm sure some of you watched The Last Dance on Netflix. This really just personifies that. I love that documentary, by the way. So let's jump into 3 tips to connect using recognition. So the first, peer-to-peer nominations. So how do you support and facilitate peer-to-peer recognition? It can be simple as a box in the office or warehouse or factory, wherever you have people in person on the time. Or it can be a Google form for folks to drop nominations in, or SurveyMonkey or Typeform, whatever you may need if you have a deskless workforce that are on the floor of the warehouse, or if you have a bunch of people working behind desks. You can do a weekly draw of those nominations and reward that person with a gift card. You can give rewards for those who give and receive the most nominations in a given month. Or you can even run quarterly award draws for each of your core values, or have managers nominate someone using the peer nominations. So look through who's been nominated the most for one of our core values is lead. So we can run through, okay, Skai has been nominated 10 times for the lead core value. Let's give him the quarterly reward for leading. I would hope he would get that. He is our CEO. Next is using team building rewards. So reward people for building connections with team building rewards. It can be as simple as rewards for participating in something like a team trivia, where people share facts about each other and they have to guess whether they're right or wrong. You've all probably played 2 truths and a lie, or have folks share something about themselves and, just really facilitate that connection. The other things you can do is set up monthly and physical wellness challenges that are inclusive and accessible. So making it so that everyone in the company can participate, and reward participation, not just the leaders, the people who are doing it the most. And that also shows that wellness is rewarded and important in an organization. So, tying rewards to these more fun activities and rewarding people for participating and building connections within an organization. And the last one, 3rd tip, is public recognition. And it's a great way to make people feel safe and included. If you're in an office or have frontline employees, having recognition displayed on an accessible TV or monitor, or using bulletin boards, whether they're virtual or physical, and adding recognition to company newsletters. Maybe set up a dedicated Microsoft Teams or Slack channel for recognition. And I also really like to focus on celebrating mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and celebrating that is really an important signal to your team that it's okay to make mistakes, and increases safety, which increases wellness, which increases purpose and opportunity. And really getting your managers and your executives to be vulnerable and sharing that with the team and recognizing it is super important. There is one caveat to all of this, is that not all people like the limelight and would prefer private recognition. So this is when you lean on your managers to understand how folks on their teams prefer to be recognized. So let's recap here. We need to connect our people. And to do this, we need to create a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment through peer-to-peer recognition, team building rewards, and public recognition. And if we can't connect our people, we won't have collaboration. I'm just going to take a quick pause and have a sip of water. And now let's jump to our next part, empowering people. So empowerment is all about helping your people acquire the skills they need and then letting them own their projects and results. And when there's no empowerment in an organization, there's no leadership. And without leadership, there's very little to no success. So it's really critical to empower our people at all levels of the organization and allow them to make mistakes. I love this quote by Brené Brown. There is no innovation and creativity without failure, period. Every great innovation that's ever happened in our lifetime and the lifetimes before us started with multiple failures. So let's look at 3 tips to empower using recognition. First one, learning and development rewards. So reward people for completing new skill training and certifications. So recognizing people when they share those new skills and for implementing them at a team or company level. So not just encouraging the learning, but also having them share it and teach others as well. Praise people for bringing innovative ideas to meetings. They're taking a risk. Thank them for it. It takes a lot to step out into a meeting and share an idea that's kind of out of the box. But thanking people for that and recognizing them for that goes a long way. The next one is coaching performance. So really the first step here is asking people if they feel recognized. Add it to your next pulse survey if it's not already there and see what happens. Then you need to let managers see where they may be falling short or who is doing well and get them to share their strategies. Performance reviews are a great way to coach managers on how to better their recognition game. Pull stats on how much recognition they gave over the quarter, how it affected their team, look at the pulse surveys, and ways they can improve. Then help managers work with their reports to set shared goals. And when those goals are achieved, managers can reward the reports and HR, us, can reward managers. So you get this nice kind of multifaceted reward and recognition going on at all levels. And then the third part is empowering your managers with budgets. Give them the tools and trust to run with a recognition program. Keep it simple, little to no approvals needed. You can give them a list of e-gift cards from Amazon, Starbucks, or from my Canadian HR leaders, Tim Hortons. But managers do need to keep track of this stuff and their sent guests. And Skai will get into that in a little bit of a moment. So let's kind of review the whole ACE your culture model. So let's talk about empowering your people. To do this, we not only need to allow people to take on new challenges and responsibilities, we need to reward learning and development. We need to coach performance and reward successes. And we need to empower managers with budgets to reward their people. And if we don't empower our people, we won't have leadership. So these are really the 9 ways to use recognition to align, connect, and empower your people to start shaping amazing culture. And on that note, I'm going to pass things off to Skai to talk about one of our clients.
Awesome. Thanks, Noah. Yeah, so I want to share a story here. We work with Purdy's Chocolatier, chocolate manufacturing company up here in Canada. And they came to us, they had pretty good culture, but they were receiving consistent feedback on their engagement surveys that they could do a better job at recognizing people and celebrating wins. And management team was skeptical at the time if a recognition program was really going to do anything or move the needle on this. But they launched a program with us and got 3 times the expected engagement on their program. And the feedback about needing more recognition has gone away. And not because people don't want recognition, but because they were successful in building a culture of recognition. And so when launching a new program, you'll want to consider 4 key stakeholders and make sure that you're prepared to address their concerns. So I quickly want to share with you what we've seen other HR leaders do to get their programs approved. So the first stakeholder, employees. Employees are not going to like anything to do with getting taxed. And so it's really important that you give them the option to opt out of a program so that they feel that they're in control. Now, most people, when asked if they would like to receive a reward and have to pay some marginal tax on that versus receiving no reward, are going to opt for the reward. But it's just important to communicate that the way the program's going to operate, and when they look at their pay stub, they might see a tax consequence, but it's because of the reward that they've received. So communication is really key with employees here. The next stakeholder is managers, and managers, as we know, are just incredibly busy, and they never like any kind of new projects or work or anything that's going to add to kind of their workload. And it can be very difficult to kind of manage change there. So it's all about involving your managers in the creation of the program. And like Noah mentioned, kind of keeping things really, really simple. It's also a good idea to pilot a program with a few teams. So if you're a larger organization, before rolling it out across the organization, you might have a few kind of teams or locations piloting it, and you'll have some results to show the other managers across the organization from that initial kind of pilot program. Okay, your next stakeholder is your finance team. And what they really want is simple reports, cost centers for expenses, taxable benefit reports for payroll. So make sure to talk with your finance team about their workflows and kind of what they're currently doing. And I imagine, it's pretty challenging if you've got an ad hoc recognition program with all sorts of people expensing different things. And so you can help to kind of simplify that. But they're going to want an easy way to track all that information and get it on a regular basis into their systems. And lastly, executives. So they're going to want to know the impact of any program. And so I like to think a good way to frame things is that culture is the multiplier of intelligence. And most organizations only exploit a small fraction of the knowledge, experience, and intellectual capital that's kind of available to them. But those companies with great culture are able to tap into almost all of it. And this is why they have such an advantage over their competitors. Next, you could show them the POW and ACE models that Noah walked through there and lay out for them, which elements you plan to launch immediately, and then, perhaps kind of add on at a later time. Lastly, the ROI. You want to show your leaders that recognition is not just a cost, but rather an investment to earn a return. So let's look at a bit of an example of here, how to present a compelling case. Firstly, you can share the impact of high levels of recognition, looking at kind of, there's lots of studies. So this one from the Carrot Principle, but, companies with high levels of recognition, morale 9 times higher, engagement 8 times higher, desire to stay 2.5 times higher. And so, translating this into kind of a monetary example or an ROI, let's look at a company here with $25 million payroll that decides to invest 1% of payroll into kind of a formal recognition program. And so that's kind of our first bar there. So we're going to kind of go through kind of, some of the different elements and the return that you can earn from this. So the first is obviously just, like I mentioned, some of the efficiency gains right out of the gate, rather than ad hoc programs with different departments and teams all running, their own programs, expensing everything and having finance and HR teams running around trying to figure it all out. So some small kind of efficiency gains there, just standardizing your recognition program. The next is an improvement in absenteeism or less absenteeism. If your people feel appreciated for their contributions, there's lots of studies indicating that they're less likely to take sick days, which will lead to sizable savings here. So 80K in this case. The third, onboarding. If you have been successful in building a strong culture of collaboration and leadership, using your recognition program, your team will help new people ramp up much faster. And this is going to significantly reduce your onboarding costs. So already, we can see that there's a bit of a return here, but we haven't even really gotten into kind of the meat of the return. So companies with recognition-rich culture experience 31% lower turnover. And we all know that turnover is wickedly costly. You have to recruit, you have to hire people, then train the new replacement. There's also the risk that new person doesn't work out. And then obviously the, potential opportunity cost of not earning revenue, with that role. And so even if we just saw, half of that 31% and did kind of a 15% increase in retention, that would be massive savings. So 825K. And here's the big one and the most impactful. Companies with high levels of recognition and engagement benefit from 21% productivity gains. Well, even with half that amount, again, to be kind of conservative, a 10% increase in productivity puts things off the chart here. That's going to be a $2.5 million kind of return. So in total, we've got a $4 million or 16 times the initial investment. And this doesn't even capture the benefits there of creating a better employer brand, employees advocating and referring other candidates, and ultimately, being able to recruit better talent and build a better team. So hopefully this can help you make the case to your executive team on why they should approve your budget request for a recognition program. So there's one little kind of problem left, though. We showed you kind of 9 ways to take action today. However, if you want to do this manually, it's going to take a bunch of time. You might have to hire a new person to kind of manage the whole program, depending on the size of your organization. There's also issues around delayed delivery if you're shipping physical items or physical gift cards to different offices or people working remotely. Next, the challenges around inconsistency. So different managers doing different things, or even the same managers, just finding it hard to be consistent if there's work involved in kind of recognizing people. Plus programs, potentially could be exclusive and not in a good way, not inclusive. So, maybe it's easier for people at one location versus those working remotely to participate in your program. And lastly, just being able to kind of track everything and prevent kind of reporting errors in the data. And so what if there was a solution that automated a lot of this? And this is where Guusto can help. And so we've taken the insights from all of our customers over the years and all of those conversations and built a platform and a mobile app with features really focused around kind of the ACE model. And so, to align people, Guusto allows you to, communicate through bulletin boards, automate just a ton of notifications to encourage participation in your program, and shape your programs and your culture around visible kind of core values. To connect people, Guusto offers filtered social feeds, peer shoutouts or nominations, and leaderboards, dynamic leaderboards that celebrate both giving and receiving recognition. And lastly, to empower people, Guusto helps to automate and streamline things like budgeting, approvals, and reporting so that the right people get the right information when they need it. And something that we're really proud of, and I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen on our site, is the partnership that we have with the One Drop Foundation to donate 1 day of clean drinking water for every gift sent. And so, going back to that initial story at the start, we made a lot of mistakes early days getting this company off the ground. But one thing we did get right was building purpose into the organization and partnering with One Drop from day one. It's an absolutely amazing organization started by the founder of Cirque du Soleil, Guy Laliberté. And they do incredible work building sustainable water projects all over the world. So really proud of our team of for the contributions that we're able to kind of make to their organization. And lastly, we always encourage people to do their due diligence about the various options in the marketplace. There are a ton of recognition providers, and depending on your organization, Guusto may not be the best fit for you. And so, we encourage you to kind of go read, what other customers are saying about Guusto, and learn about kind of the other platforms out there. We are really proud to have been kind of the number one highest rated recognition platform over the last couple of years. And it's really because we deeply care about providing amazing customer experiences and helping our clients reach their objectives. And so we'd love the opportunity to work with you if we're not already. And with that, I think we'll kind of wrap there and open up the presentation for any questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, throw them in chat, put them in the Q&A. Anything specific about recognition or culture or kind of how we do things like here at Guusto. I know one question that kind of always kind of pops up into the world is around milestone programs and that kind of stuff, and what you should be doing for milestone programs. And I know we help a lot of our clients with their milestone programs. It's like best practices around milestone programs. Let's just jump things off with that.
Well, one thing that we'll often see is kind of companies will start their milestone programs at kind of 5 years or 10 years or even higher than that. And so we often encourage companies to do some smaller milestone celebrations at the 1 year mark, or even for some of our retail clients that might have kind of like really high turnover, the 3 month mark, just doing kind of something little to say, hey, we got you, you got past this point, and setting those up. And then the other piece is to make those public, right? You spoke about kind of public recognition, Noah, so that, not only are they kind of receiving that recognition from the company or their direct leader, but others at the company can see that and celebrate that as well.
Oh, awesome. We've got some questions rolling in now. Awesome. So let's go to the first one. So this one's from Jay. What is the average spend per employee, 1% or higher? So what's the average spend looking at payroll? And what do we generally encourage companies to do, or what do we generally see?
So I'm not sure I'm kind of clear on the average spend per employee. Okay, well, let me answer it this way. Like when we're talking to clients, we'll typically see a range from anything from kind of 0.25% of payroll all the way up to about 2% of payroll. Typically we aim for about kind of 1% of payroll to make an impact. And so like, if you think about somebody kind of making $50,000 a year, adding $500 to their paycheck at the end of the year is likely not going to make a huge impact. But if you kind of spread that out over the course of the year and empower their managers and peers to kind of, reward them with $25 and $50 gift cards or, other things of similar kind of value, that's going to be much more impactful. And it's going to speak to kind of what they were doing at that time when they, performed that behavior, and help to kind of reinforce that. And so, like Noah mentioned, if you can tie your recognition program back to core values and have rewards going out when people are demonstrating those, it goes beyond making people feel appreciated. It starts to reinforce, the way things are done at your company. So hopefully that answered your question, but, typically we shoot for about 1%. We understand that lots of companies don't, have that budget, out of the gate, and it can be challenging as HR leaders to, get the approvals for these things. So the key is to kind of get your foot in the door, get something going, demonstrate that it works, that you're moving the needle on some of your engagement surveys, maybe your, Glassdoor reviews are kind of getting better, and then go back to your executive team and kind of try to ramp up the program.
Yeah, we always like to say that like saying thanks is free. So like just, getting your managers and getting your leaders to just also say thanks to people, because that can go a long way as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot. Our tool and many on the market have non-monetary recognition tools built into them, right? And so you can encourage non-monetary programs, but typically the most successful ones we see are ones where there is a layer of incentive or rewards built into those non-monetary programs. So around, I think, Noah, you mentioned during your part, the presentation, doing kind of draws, or, looking at some of the leaderboards for, who's been giving or receiving the most nomination, calling those out publicly to kind of encourage people to participate in that non-monetary recognition.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, let's jump to Gail's question here. Do you have a tried and true way to get buy-in from leadership to promote and keep recognition alive? Like a hook line that gets them on board every time?
Well, I mentioned it during the presentation there, just the multiplier effect on intelligence, right? And being able to kind of tap into, the intelligence and capabilities of your team. And when we think about kind of, recognition being kind of that ultimate advantage, right? Like leaders are always looking for kind of competitive advantages in the marketplace. But like Noah mentioned, information is just being shared so quickly on the internet now that if you come up with a new marketing strategy or a new sales strategy or a new product feature or something like that, those get copied so quickly. And so, your biggest, competitive advantage that people cannot copy is your culture. And, I try to sell your leadership on that. And then obviously kind of layering in, hey, there's a significant return to be earned here. They're going to be looking at the numbers.
Yeah, I think in this world right now where like employee churn is so high and it's only increasing and the great resignation is here, sometimes it's just talking about those retention rates of like, if we can put in place a really good recognition program, we can expect higher retention rates of our employees and people leaving less often. So also like focusing on the pain points that matter to your executive. So sometimes just asking them, what's your biggest pain point right now? and having them tell you about it and be like, okay, great. And then build a case study around that pain point also works really well.
I I had somebody say to me, and we were having a conversation with another founder of another company, and he said, for anybody, if you ask any leader kind of like whether their people are their most important asset, like people say that, but do they really believe it? But you challenge them by saying like, okay, so who's the best, person on this team or whatnot? And, they name the person. If you then go back to them and say, okay, well, what if we had 10 more people like that? Like how much of a difference would that impact the company? Well, the way that we're going to do that is by creating a really amazing place for people to work. And like we went through this transition at Guusto where, we weren't focused on we were so focused on kind of the customer and the problem and back and forth. And as soon as we made that mental shift of kind of, we need to get the best possible people working here and make it a really great place for them to work. Everything changed and like our growth completely took off. And so, we went through that experience. And I think that if you communicate to your leaders that, hey, if we could attract 10 more people like this, it's really going to move the needle. And we do that with kind of making this a really great place for people to work.
Let's go to this next one from Rihanna, which is, what if leadership is too busy with their tasks to feel that they have the time to focus on building engagement and improving culture? How can we communicate the importance of taking the time? I've been a part of companies that want to champion strong culture, but the leadership team is extremely strapped with time and it all tends to fall on the people ops team. So I like to answer this by saying it's part of the executive's job to care about this, because if they don't care about it, no one else will. It's really one of those things, then we talked about this, of like your leaders really need to buy into it. They need to walk the talk, because if they talk a big game and they don't follow up with that, that's going to erode all the trust within an organization. And then people are going to trust what they say. And so if they're not taking the time to do this, then really the time that they're spending on other things is just, it's going to be wasted. And it's going to fall short. And every other initiative that you're kind of trying to push forward from a product perspective or business perspective isn't going to have as much impact, because they're neglecting this other side of things. It's like only focusing on your physical health and never focusing on your mental health. Well, you may be fit physically, but you'll still not be in the best shape that you can be as a human being.
Rihanna, I might chime in here too. I mean, Noah, like having Noah on our team is great, because he's just an outstanding kind of champion for our team and our people. And, he's constantly pushing for us to try new things. Right. And so, I think Noah does a really good job of kind of presenting data to us. And so, we look at kind of engagement scores and we ask specific things, just like our customer Purdy's did, on their engagement surveys, in their exit interviews, asking people, kind of why they're leaving the company. And if you have data in there that says, I'm not feeling recognized, or, I didn't feel like there was a strong, connection or culture of collaboration or something like that. If you can present those survey results to your leaders and then tie them back to, the studies, and I do see another question here about kind of resources. Maybe our marketing team here, Kevin, when we do share kind of the presentation after, can link to some of those studies from the presentation, because you can build a strong case for your leadership team by presenting, what the compelling numbers are, right? And the ROI piece too. I always like to kind of position that as, when we look at kind of the return on investment. Now that I know for a $250,000 investment in recognition, I could earn somewhere in the neighborhood of kind of $4 million return. There's actually a cost of inaction. So if I do nothing, I'm actually costing the company kind of, $3.75 million here. So spinning it that way might be helpful for you.
Skai, drop some resources in there already.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin.
Hey, and we've got another one here. We have a quarterly recognition program based on our company values, and we use nominations from employees to choose a winner. We haven't been getting too many nominations, unfortunately, so I wanted to know how you would encourage more participation.
I've got some ideas for you.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty classic problem that a lot of companies come up against.
I think that your time horizon is too long. So doing quarterly or annual, like if that is all that you're kind of doing, people forget about it, right? And then maybe kind of like right at the end of the quarter, you kind of do a blast saying like, hey, we're gonna do these things, and a few kind of nominations trickle in right at the end of the quarter. And so the best way to get kind of nominations, shout outs, non-monetary recognition programs working is to set up a higher frequency on the cadence of when you're kind of like presenting those nominations. And so internally here at Guusto, and we got this from a number of our customers, our weekly all hands meeting, we'll randomly draw kind of a few nominations that happened over the previous week, and then we will send, I forget what the values are, but for the kind of first three that are drawn, we'll send kind of a small reward. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge, right? It can be kind of a coffee or something like that. But at least kind of we're making those public. And so, that we have the advantage of kind of being a fully, remote and digital operation. But if you do have in-office teams, or, we have a lot of clients that are retail operations, getting there kind of, they'll have all team or most of the team kind of on site at some point, and just running the draw like in the system, and kind of seeing like who the winners are, printing those out, putting them on the wall. And then monthly, what we'll do is kind of look at leaderboards and just say like, hey, who actually contributed the most here? Like who actually gave out the most nominations? Let's celebrate them. And then the third piece to this is, and Noah mentioned it, performance reviews. And so depending on how often you're doing performance reviews at your organization, working with your managers to build that in to their performance reviews, such that, if like a district manager is having a conversation with the general manager, one of the line items is just, hey, how much recognition did you send out to your team? How much, let's have a look at, how much recognition or nominations are happening within your team. And so if they're having that conversation during performance reviews and they know that's coming, they'll, think about ways to kind of get it working at their location. Hopefully that helped.
And I think we got time for one more. So let's do this one. So what happens if one of the core values does not align with a specific department? Also, what can you do to make sure that it doesn't happen? I'm confused about that second part, but the first part, what happens if one of the core values does not align with a specific department? I feel like, I don't know, I think maybe there might be a misalignment between how that department is being led. I feel like all core values will be able to translate to a degree to any department of an organization, and maybe some are more so than others. Like for sure, there's going to be some that are, more applicable to certain departments over others. But I think every core value should have some way to be able to tie it to any different team. I don't know, Skai, do you have any other insights you want to add here?
Yeah, my other thought, yeah, I mean, at an organizational level, I mean, that's kind of a challenge for the people team to figure out, right? If it doesn't align, but if that is the case, and there might be a good kind of logic behind that, setting up kind of separate recognition programs, so in our platform, or whether you do this manually or whatnot, allowing for kind of, a different set of core values or reasons to be associated with recognition at that kind of, at that department. And depending, there might be some challenges there if you have kind of cross-departmental recognition happening. But if it is, fairly specific, within that department, you want to get recognition kind of happening back and forth. There are ways to kind of structure programs such that, this group of people are kind of, operating their own way, and this other group of people are kind of operating their other way. And there could be kind of, some overlap. And so, if you're interested in kind of diving a little bit deeper on kind of how to structure programs, that might be kind of a good reason to kind of reach out to our sales team, and they can walk through, different ways to set things up in Guusto.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's all the time that we have. Thanks everyone for joining us. It's been great having you, listen to what we have to say, and I hope you found it insightful. Always happy to connect on LinkedIn if anyone wants to, continue the conversation there. And yeah, just want to say thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your week and weekend that's coming up soon.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, y'all.